Imagine standing in a freezing swamp in Maryland in the year 1850, clutching a shivering child, listening to the distant, terrifying baying of bloodhounds. One wrong step, one broken twig, and your life or your death will be decided in a single, heart-stopping instant. Before this country was torn apart by the Civil War, there existed a trackless, invisible network of defiance. It had no iron rails, no roaring steam engines, and no scheduled arrivals. Yet, it was the most dangerous and sophisticated transportation system in American history. This was the Underground Railroad.
To the plantation owners of the American South, it was a grand conspiracy of theft.
To those held in chains, it was a lifeline stretching through hundreds of miles of hostile territory toward the cold, distant light of freedom.
But how did an illiterate, scattered population of enslaved people and their allies coordinate a secret, multi-state...
The answer lies in a world of coded songs, hidden basements, and ordinary people who chose to risk everything for a simple, fundamental truth.
The journey did not begin with a train ride. It began in the oppressive, suffocating heat of the southern plantations. Picture the endless rows of cotton stretching to the horizon, bleached white under a merciless sun. Underneath that beauty lay a landscape of sheer terror. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth, sweat, and the constant threat of the lash. The only sounds were the rhythmic thud of hose against dirt and the watchful, heavy breathing of overseers on horseback, pistols resting against their hips. For an enslaved person, deciding to run was a choice between two forms of death. To stay was a slow, crushing destruction of the spirit. To run was to invite a swift, violent end if caught. But when the pressure became too great to bear, the escape began. It almost always started on a Saturday night. Plantation owners rarely missed their labor until Monday morning, giving the runaways a precious 36-hour head start. Imagine slipping away into the woods as the plantation cabins fell silent. The darkness of the southern forest was absolute, suffocating, and alive with sound. Fallen leaves crackled like glass underfoot. Every shadow looked like an overseer. Every hoot of an owl sounded like a warning signal. They ran with nothing but the clothes on their backs, their hearts hammering against their ribs, guided only by the moss growing on the north side of the trees. But they were not entirely alone. Long before a runaway ever stepped into the woods, the seeds of their escape were planted through a language hidden in plain sight.
In the fields, enslaved workers sang spiritual.
To the plantation owners, these songs were merely harmless, religious melodies that kept the workforce docile.
But to those who knew how to listen, the music was a map.
When a deep, resonant voice began to sing, it was not just a Bible story.
A conductor was in the area, and an escape was being organized.
If they sang of following the drinking gourd, they were passing down crucial navigational instructions. The drinking gourd was the celestial outline of the Big Dipper, pointing directly to the North Star. Even the simple act of hanging laundry on a fence carried immense weight. A quilt draped over a porch railing, patterned with specific geometric shapes, told a fleeing soul whether a house...
This was a silent, cultural conspiracy.
It was a language written in thread, sung in rhythm, and whispered in the dark. passing vital intelligence. If a runaway survived the first few days of the hunt, they would eventually reach the first station.
These stations were ordinary homes, barns, and churches owned by station masters, free black citizens.
Imagine approaching a quiet, dark farmhouse in the dead of night. The door creaks open to reveal a flickering candle. A hand reaches out, pulling you into the warm, smelling air of a kitchen. There is no judgment here, only the quiet rustle of wool blankets and the steam rising from a bowl of hot broth. For the first time in your life, you are looked at not as property, but as a human being.
But the danger inside these safe houses was constant. Under the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850, helping a runaway was a federal crime. Federal marshals and ruthless bounty hunters patrolled the roads, authorized to search any home on mere suspicion. Because of this, safe houses had to be architectural puzzles. Builders constructed hidden rooms behind massive brick fireplaces, false walls in dark cellars, and trapdoors hidden under heavy rugs. Slowly carted past suspicious deputies who poked bayonets into the straw, inches from a hidden child's face. To guide these souls through this gauntlet of terror, a rare breed of heroes emerged. They were called the conductors. Among them, none was more feared by the slaveholders than a diminutive woman named Harriet Tubman. Born into chattel slavery herself, she escaped to the north, only to return to the jaws of danger 19 times. She walked through the shadows of Maryland like a ghost, carrying a heavy pistol at her side and an unwavering resolve in her heart. To her passengers, she was a fierce protector. If a runaway grew too tired or panicked and wished to turn back, Tubman would point her pistol at their chest. She knew that a single returnee could be tortured into revealing the entire network.
"You go on, or you die," she would whisper in the dark.
And they went on. Over the course of her missions, she never lost a single passenger.
She bypassed armed patrols by taking her groups through freezing rivers to throw off the scent of tracking hounds, moving only when the winter storms blanked their tracks in snow. As the runaways pushed further north, the landscape began to change. The humid air of the southern swamps gave way to the crisp, biting winds of the northern states.
But even the free states of the North were no longer safe after 1850.
To be truly free, they had to cross the ultimate border. They had to reach Canada, the land they called Canaan.
For many, the final obstacle was the roaring, misty chasm of the Niagara River.
Picture a rickety wooden suspension bridge hanging high above the churning, violent green waters of the Niagara Gorge.
On the American side, slave catchers stood watching, waiting for any familiar faces.
On the other side, just a few hundred yards away, lay the dense, pine-covered forests of Ontario, Canada, under the protection of the British Crown.
To cross that bridge was to step from one world into another.
We have accounts of men and women who, upon reaching the center of the bridge, realized they had crossed the international boundary line. They fell to their knees, weeping, tearing at their clothes, and kissing the cold wooden planks of the Canadian soil.
Behind them lay the scars of the whip, the memories of stolen children, and the constant, agonizing fear of the auction block.
Ahead of them lay a hard, uncertain life in a cold, unfamiliar country. But it was a life that belonged entirely to them. Between 1800 and 1865, it is estimated that over 100,000 people escaped the clutches of slavery through this invisible network.
The Underground Railroad was not just an escape route. It was a quiet, profound revolution.
It proved that even under the most brutal system of oppression the world had ever seen, the human desire for freedom could not be chained, bought, or broken.
The old safe houses have mostly crumbled.
The secret paths through the southern woods have been paved over by modern highways. But history never truly disappears. Every time we stand near the banks of the Ohio River, or look up at the bright, steady glow of the North Star.
If you want to discover more hidden chapters of human resilience, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments.